Hey, hello.
Hey,
How are you?
good. How are you doing?
Good, thanks. I just read a bit about your project when from the email you sent.
I got in touch with Arlene quite late in the stage in the project, so we didn't have much time to collaborate, but we wanted to do something kind of playful and like outside of our normal practice. And I think I can't really remember exactly, but both of us didn't have a computer or something wrong. So we were like, okay, let's do something about broken computers and like broken communication. And then she had this old broken computer and I also had an old broken computer. So we thought we'd like kind of make like sort of turn them into like sculptures that and like solid objects that you you can't look through like you do with a computer screen, like you normally look through into another world. And for this thing we wanted to like block that thing, so completely like change the function of the object. And then both of us wrote stuff on the screens like with handwriting, but yeah, the main thing was to like, I don't know, change the function of the object, I guess, sort of a ready-made thing. Yeah, yeah. And also something like really physical, because we were like collaborating digitally, but we wanted to make something that had like a really like concrete form.
Had you worked with Arlene before?
No, I never met her either. So it was quite weird. Like we started, and also like both of us started working on really kind of intimate material. Like I was on my thing, I recopied a letter that my sister had written me 10 years before, and she also wrote something quite sentimental. So we didn't know each other, and we were like mainly talking over WhatsApp. So we didn't really like, I mean, we didn't have like Zoom or any of these video calls.
Yeah.
So we like, I don't know, it's interesting engaging with someone that I'd never met on like an art project, which already is like kind of an intimate or like personal thing. Plus bringing in, just by chance, ended up bringing in like intimate subject matter. So we sort of
Yeah.
got to know each other through that. It's kind of like having a pen pal.
Yeah. Like an
Yeah.
audio file, yeah. That's what it, yeah, I think that's a good description of it.
Yeah. And since then I've been doing like collaborations with people, like just playful fun like stuff, mostly with video work, but like online. And it's yeah, it is like an art pen pal. You like exchange ideas through a visual form. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. I think that's what it was like for me with, I worked with Thuli.
Mhm.
And we basically, I was in New York at the time, and Thuli was doing her MFA at Michaela's. And I think through her MFA, they were doing some travel like thing, and all the MFA students got to come to New York for a while.
Oh,
So
cool.
it just so happened that like I think it was like Michaela had just told me about this project, and then I think Tuli came couple of months or a month after or something, or before we did the actual physical work basically. So we actually got to meet for a while. She was there for like a week, I think. So we met, and then we had talked a little bit, and um, just started like going back and forth with some ideas. She went back to South Africa, and then we just continued talking about what we could potentially do. At the time, like we were both kind of just interested in like how bodies can, or how in like machines and tech, and how bodies and tech like kind of merge and come together, I guess. And so we had talked about maybe doing like basically making together sort of these inanimate objects and putting a speaker into both of the objects, and basically we would be the voices of the objects, and then they would essentially be talking to each other. um I think that's where we started off, and I think we're going to do like a live interview thing at the time, but I think logistically it was just like really complicated. So we ended up just put like the plastic crates where you use for like storage, or you like pack fruits or whatever. She got two of those, put them on a share, and then there was a recording coming out of the boxes essentially. So it was like these talking boxes basically. Yeah, I guess like the whole time we didn't really speak on Skype or anything. I think we were just emailing each other mostly. And I think we sort of just sent each other images back and forth while we were trying to consolidate the idea as well. So yeah, I guess in that way it was like having an email art pen pal, basically creating an artwork over a virtual space, but then also like trusting that the final product, the look of it and feel of it was really up to Thuli, because she was the one who was here on the ground.
How did you feel about, like, I don't know, like the loss of control of like not really being able to like be present for the installation and stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I think I was okay with that, I guess. Because I felt like it was also part of the project. Basically just like having to let go of whatever the final product would be or the end product. And yeah, I don't know. I think I felt okay with that. I think also because I just trusted Thuli as well. Like I trusted her sensibility and like her kind of, whatever she would end up doing with it. So I don't know. I felt okay with it. I wasn't too like freaked out by not being able to control the final look of the project. How did you feel about it?
Yeah, the same. I think a lot of it, yeah, like you said, you really have to trust the other person or the people you're working with, if it's a group, if you're doing it, from far and online.
Yeah.
And like it kind of goes against apart from with collectives, but against like the sort of artist instinct of working alone and like having all the elements like under your control. And it's really different to like working in a group. So I don't know, I found like working with another person, you have to let go of control, and you also have to trust them, and you also have to like I don't know, like if you have a thought process and you're on this like train of a thought process where you can see the end result, but then the other person comes in with something else that changes the direction, you have to sort of be open and flexible to changing your direction. Whereas like normally, I don't know, I'm used to working on my own and like just going with the idea that I had. And having that break is, I don't know, quite interesting, because it becomes, I don't know, more a dialogue than just like one person going with whatever idea. So yeah, I don't know. I'm going on a rant now. Sorry.
Was that your first collaboration with someone?
No, the first collaboration I did was with Sepide, but it wasn't online. It was like in her studio. We got these massive canvases and we painted on them together. And like she would paint one canvas and I would paint another canvas. And then like halfway through the day we would swap. And then and yeah, it was the same thing, like really trusting the other person's sensibility and like completely relinquishing control and just letting whatever happened, which was really like quite difficult, but also like I learned so much. And it was interesting to create a dialogue that's like purely using medium and color and like marks and visual language instead of
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you?
Yeah, I think it was the first one. So that was also pretty interesting for me. Because I also feel like I have always, like, I think the way that we trained, like in Michaela's and stuff, I think like that idea of like just having the artist being like solo, doing your own thing, picking a project, and you decide every part of what the project is solo. I think that's kind of like how I just grew while I was at art school. So I just kind of maintained that after art school. I think the project with Thuli was the first one really that I'd done a collaboration with that was going to be shown in a public space. After that, like I think I really did start thinking more about collaborative work. And yeah, I think it was also just about, like you said, like learning to trust the other person and their sensibilities as well. So I think it was a good first collaboration.
And so what other collaborations have you done since then?
Been working on this collective called Fimbi Yamashoko, which is basically Shona, like, which means the place where the words are kept. A collective that was built around studying this fictional character who is called Pigeon, quote unquote Pigeon. And basically it's called Pigeon because this character is supposed to be the manifestation of Pigeon languages, which is what I'm been making work about now. It's myself who's the permanent member, and then also I have people who I've collaborated with who are more fluid members, not necessarily like fixed members, but they come in and out. And then there's also fictional members who I've made up or who other people have made up. I also worked with another like a publishing collective in New York called Black Chalk, and they
I know Black Chalk.
Oh yeah, with Nonsi and Tinashe. Yeah. So they've done a lot of different. I mean, they do a lot of like things in publishing, as you know. They have this book that came out. You may know it. Some writers can give you two heartbeats, and it's basically So I went to Germany and I did a conference in Germany where I was talking about their book, and then I also took their book to India for like an artist's book fair where I was also showing some of my zines, and I showed their work as well. Yeah, working collaboratively is like really great, and I think it brings different things to your work, I think.
Yeah. Cool. But I didn't know you're working with like so much literary stuff. That's really cool.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that developed like I think while I was doing my MFA, and then I finished that, and then I just became very interested in Pidgin languages, especially ones coming from Southern Africa. I think my practice has become a lot of different things, I think.
Are you still in New York at the moment?
Oh no, I'm back in South Africa now. You're in Italy, and are you still painting?
Yeah. I'm also studying at the moment, so I'm not having as much time to paint as I would like, but still painting, and at the moment studying online. But I'm very lucky. I have my studio in my apartment, so which I used to lament because it's tiny and like it's very easy to procrastinate if your studio is next to the kitchen. But now it's amazing because with lockdown, I mean, I can still carry on working, and I have been, so it's been really great. But I'm going back to Zim in September. I'll be should be finished in July. All goes according to plan.
Yeah, of course. I think especially now, like with Corona and everything, I'm sure a lot of things are up in the air for a lot of people. Like I've just been watching the news about Italy and like how intense it is. Where are you again in Italy?
I'm in Venice,
Okay.
and so we're in like the north where it's been more intense. But Venice it's kind of a strange city because it has like very, very few inhabitants, and most of the people here on a day-to-day basis are tourists. There's like before lockdown, I think the stats were that on a day-to-day basis there were 40 tourists to one Venetian in the city. So we've basically like got like an empty city now, and also because no one takes public transport or anything. Everyone's very chilled. Like you can always be in open space. I think it's actually much worse where you can't buy alcohol, cigarettes, or go out for a walk.
Yeah, it's been pretty hectic. But I don't know. Like I think I actually have not been outside at all for like obviously for the whole month. And my mom and I are both diabetics, so we've just been like trying to be as careful as possible. I have kind of made the study at home into a mini art studio, so I've just been trying to do as much as possible there. But I think in the beginning of the whole thing, I was kind of just, I don't know, like I wasn't really doing anything. And I think I was just still like adjusting. So I was like, what the F? What is happening? This is crazy.
I can't really complain, to be honest. Like, I'm quite enjoying having the empty time to work and to read and like work on my thesis. And I think Michaela's asking a question. How are you staying connected socially and to the outside world?
Okay. I think it's just been through doing things like this. Just like for me, it's just been on WhatsApp, emailing, Skyping, calling people. And when my alarm goes off in the morning, I have this like it goes off, and then it gives me an option to like listen to the day's headlines basically. And like since this whole thing started, like my alarm goes off, and then immediately afterward it's just like a stream of like corona related headlines for like 10 minutes or something. So I think that's the most I can actually do. So
that's quite a hardcore way to start your day.
Yeah.
To be honest, I haven't really been that good with keeping in touch with the outside world. I was checking the news like crazy at the beginning, and then I just stopped because it's kind of repetitive, except that the death numbers keep getting higher, more or less, which is just depressing. And also I got angry because there's like, for example, there's like a massive measles epidemic, and it doesn't even make it into the news. So I don't know, I stopped watching the news because I was like, the biopolitics of it were getting a bit much. And then like with Zoom meetings, with like one-on-one meetings, I find it's great, like this is perfect, or 2 or 3 people. But the minute it gets to like, I don't know, more than 5 people, it's just, people end up just like looking at the screen and saying like banal things because you can't get into a proper conversation. So I kind of have, I don't know, stopped doing that a bit. Although we do have like our first floor gallery weekly meetings.
In your email, when you spoke about your work in the way that you were using your sister's letter and thinking about letters and digital communication, like you wouldn't just open a letter while you're walking into a grocery shop, but like these days you can be reading a serious email or something, even if it is like more personal, you know, just on the go. You don't really give it as much kind of attention or value as you would a written letter. So I'm just thinking now, in the way that you're communicating, what are those kind of things that you are treasuring in these moments?
Yeah, so I don't remember the last time I opened a letter apart from like bank statements, very dire. But I think it's not so much in the fact that you don't keep it, or because if you have a really nice email, you can always like download it and print it. I think it's something to do with the way, like with letter writing, the way you approach how you write the thing. Because I have the idea that with like writing letters, you're trying to create, like you're trying to tell a story or create like some sort of experience for the person reading. Whereas like now with all this like digital, like all the communication happening digitally, it seems to me that a lot of it is about imparting information rather than creating an experience for the other person. For example, we would be having a much different experience if we were talking in the same room. There's something about like presence in a space that you just can't have. Like you have so many other things with digital stuff, but then you lose, I don't know, the other thing.
I also can't remember the last time I opened a letter. I think it must have been, I had a pen pal when I was in junior school, and I think that was the last time. whenever I do emails, I honestly don't think I've ever written like an email in like a letter form or in a sort of like just in like a casual email to a friend or something. I feel like all my emails are generally like more formal, just more like work related. And I feel like if I want to talk to friends or family, I generally tend to call or to do Skype or video. But I guess because if you are just like doing it on a video or Skype call, it's more immediate, it's more like casual, it's not as considered, I guess. And maybe to the point, they're so immediate, maybe to the point where, I don't know, like I'm not archiving them the same way that I would a letter, I guess. They're not so precious.
It's interesting listening to you talk about like the immediacy. You could also like flip the thing about presence around and say, well, actually, like when you're writing a letter, you're mediating what you're saying because you're trying to like, I don't know, make it more poetic or something. Whereas when you're writing a WhatsApp, you're literally like barely thinking about what you're writing. You're just communicating. So you're like really present, like almost, yeah. So there's like, I don't know, maybe it's like just different kinds of ways of thinking about presence.
Even though like WhatsApp and sending images and Instagram, those things are immediate, but I think often the process of getting to certain things isn't always. And the fact that you always have an option to take something back, whereas with live or video or Zoom and emails, you can't delete something that's already out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a bit of a scary thing for me because like I don't know, this is a bit personal, I guess, but like if I look back on like who I was 10 years ago as a person, I wouldn't really like want that person to be online and that online thing to be available 10 years later. Like prefer to just leave it in the forgotten box.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe just to go back to your work and where you are now in your practice, just to kind of end off on whether this lockdown and everything that is happening socially is, of course, it's influencing you in your lives and your activities and the way you also communicate, but is it having any kind of profound effect on your thinking about your practice? Are you kind of, you know, changing the way you question things? Or is it just like you've changed basically your process or where you're working from and that's it?
You go first, Leona.
I'm definitely taking stock of my practice and the work, you know, that I'm making now. And I think I've just been doing a lot of reflection maybe about what I am doing now and what I want to do. I think I was kind of used to operating without a studio already anyway, or just having limited space. Like yeah, when I was in New York, I think I definitely I was just working from my apartment basically, and so I didn't have like a physical space to go to. So I always felt like the possibility of making work, there's a lot of ways that can happen. Also anticipating that this is going to be around for the next year or even 2 years or more. So I think I've also been trying to figure out how I would continue to be an artist in an environment where we have Corona for like years and years and years. And I don't have any solutions about that yet. In the long term, I don't have any solutions. Maybe short term, but long term, I'm not sure.
Yeah, me neither. We had, also, who knows what's going to happen to the art market as well. It's going to be interesting to see.
But I think the art market never really, I mean, there was the 2008 crash, but I don't know, I feel like the art market just continued to soar. Yeah. But I guess maybe because it was sustained by wealthy people who can afford, who made a lot more money during the crash or whatever, so they were able to continue to buy work.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know artists and people who don't have the resources or the money to sustain a practice, like, yeah, that is definitely a big question.
Art, like the art market is a lot based on socializing and being seen and knowing and fairs and travel, and maybe that kind of status and that kind of collecting, you know, it's not necessarily only about money. It's like, do people still want to invest in the same things when they're not getting the same experience from the process of doing it? And the status.
Yeah,
I was wondering about that as well, because, like, I don't know, the best part for me about art fairs is the socializing. Like, it's impossible to look at art fairs, like, I find, but the socializing is amazing. So, like, I don't know. And also seeing art online has a novelty, but then after a while it's like you need to see the real thing or listen to the thing or whatever. Like,
I agree with you, because I feel like there's something about the physical presence. There's something about being in front of it, but then also like you were saying, like, art is a very social thing, but then also looking at art is also a social thing. Like I used to like going to galleries and museums with like a friend or maybe two friends, and we'll look at the art, but then also talk about it together, you know.
Yeah.
So that's
but
definitely
also engaging with an artwork that you love is also a social thing. Like, you're in a dialogue with the artwork. So even if you go by yourself, you're having like a social experience with something that's not a person, but it still has, you still have like kind of a conversation, I guess.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't think that can be I don't know, transposed into the digital world necessarily. Also, like, the relationship between art and architecture. Like, for example, the Venice Biennale, like, so much of it is influenced by, or so much of how you see work is influenced by the architecture and the different buildings. It has a massive effect on the way the artworks are
experience or something.
Experienced. I'm quite cynical about the lockdown end. You know, there's all these romantic ideas about lockdown ending and everyone's sort of going to emerge like new people. I think it's going to go back to normal, and like people are going to just remember that like period they were stuck in their houses. But one thing that I read is happening like with particularly like contemporary African art, where they wouldn't have necessarily had the resources or the opportunity to, like, institutions to take things to a more international level, to have more people seeing stuff and engaging. The thing that has happened with this lockdown is that everyone's like gotten much more digital savvy. So there's like online viewing rooms. I can have like crits with artists in Zimbabwe here, which I was really missing, and now like we can. So I don't know, maybe like because now you can will have more accessibility to stuff from all over the world. It creates like more presence, for example, for the African art scene.
Yeah, it's like it basically takes away the perceived centers of art or something.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it'll make a difference in the long run, but it's could be seen as a silver lining, maybe.